Thank you so much for everyone for coming together as a community and sitting centrally, all right? Again, homework. By the time lunchtime comes around, I will call on people randomly to tell me something about somebody in another institution apart from their own, all right? Okay. Ladies and gentlemen, before we begin, we're required to have the national anthem. So can I please ask you to stand with reverence for the playing of the national anthem? Thank you very much. You may be seated. Okay. Everyone, welcome to day 2 of the Big Data Forum, and thank you very much for coming. Usually with these things, there is attrition from day 1 to day 2. It's very encouraging to see such a large audience on day 2. All right, so thank you so much. That is encouraging because, of course, again, we're building a community here, and your commitment shows that you all are interested in building this community to advance the country on the path to big data analytics and artificial intelligence and in technology in general. My name is Mark Thomas. I'll be the Master of Ceremonies for the opening session. I'm the Partnerships and Development Finance Officer in the UN Resident Coordinator's Office in Port of Spain. All right? The Minister of Digital Transformation in the Ministry of Digital Transformation is unfortunately unable to join us this morning, but we have his permanent secretary in his stead, and I will now introduce the permanent secretary in the Ministry of Digital Transformation. Corey Belfon is the permanent secretary in the Ministry of Digital Transformation of Trinidad and Tobago. He was also the deputy permanent secretary at one point in time, and he was the director of information and communications technology in the ministry. He has been an ICT business development, an ICT and business development manager at AP Scott, yeah, Trinidad Limited. And he was also a lecturer at COSTAT, the College of Science, Technology, and Applied Arts of Trinidad and Tobago. Mr. Belfon, Permanent Secretary Belfon, holds a Master of Business Administration from Anglia Ruskin University, and he also has a Masters of Science degree in Project Management from the University of the West Indies with distinction. Permanent Secretary Belfon, I ask you to come and give your opening remarks.
Thank you, and a very good morning to everyone. Since we are into the second day of the forum, allow me to allude to and acknowledge the already established protocols. I bring greetings from my minister, Senator the Honorable Hassel Bacchus, Minister of Digital Transformation, who is unfortunately unable to be here with us today because of prior commitments. We at the ministry consider data to be one of the foundation stones upon which the National Digital Transformation Agenda is constructed. We digitize data, and digitizing data enables us to digitalize our systems and business processes. This, in turn, enables the creation of the enabling environment in which digital transformation can occur. Trinidad and Tobago has traditionally relied on the energy sector to drive economic growth and development. However, in recent times, we have increasingly recognized the need to identify and take full advantage of the many opportunities that present themselves in this new digital age. As we continue to digitize and digitalize, we are starting to see the emergence of another key strategic resource, which is our data. And of course, one of the key characteristics of data as a strategic asset is that it is not a finite resource, but is in fact increasing exponentially in both size and scope. Therefore, to help set the context for this morning's session, I would like to discuss the Ministry of Digital Transformation approach to data governance, and in particular, how we are going about the task of facilitating the development of Trinidad and Tobago's national data strategy. So, why do we need a national data strategy? As we work together to build a digital Trinidad and Tobago, we find ourselves on the cusp of a brave and exciting new world. This is truly a time of disruption. The effective management of data is critical for ensuring the transformation is positive and beneficial for all of our citizens. The national data strategy is needed to meet the very diverse needs of a wide variety of stakeholders in civil society, private sector, and the government. It focuses on maintaining high data standards, flexibility, and reliability, including international practices for data use. The strategy is a collaborative effort that seeks to harness the transformative power of data for a brighter and more equitable future, serving as a blueprint to improve decision-making, protect privacy rights, ensure data security, and foster transparency. One of the key tasks of the National Data Strategy is to find that balance, or the right balance, between the need to ensure that sensitive and confidential data, especially the personal information of citizens, is safe and secure, while at the same time ensuring that appropriate non-confidential data is available to the national community as open data. Of course, data protection and open data are not mutually exclusive, and we are currently actively working on both. Our efforts to emphasize privacy, build public trust and confidence, and maintain the security of our data are based around three major areas of work. One, the full proclamation of the Data Protection Act, which we are working to conclude by the end of 2024. Two, associated with the full proclamation of the said act is the operationalization of the Office of the Information Commissioner, which will also be completed during 2024. Thirdly, and recent events would have reinforced the urgency of this, we have placed the highest priority on building a robust cybersecurity environment, including ensuring that public sector digital transformation initiatives include security by design as one of their design principles. At the other end of the data strategy spectrum, we are also championing the release of as much of government's non-sensitive data as possible, such as open data, working collaboratively with colleagues in the MPA or the Ministry of Public Administration and other public sector agencies. The MDT Open Data team has been uploading data to the government open data portal, which is conveniently located at data.gov.tt over the past few months. And there, of course, you will find at least or over 300 data groups, including aerial photographs, trade and economic data, and connectivity data from the most recent Digital Inclusion Survey, which was undertaken by the Telecommunications Authority of Trinidad and Tobago. We are also developing a toolkit of useful data management tools to make it easier for users to analyze and use open data. And our intent is to make this data as accessible as possible to everyone, especially members of the public, in keeping with another of our core principles, inclusion by design. The blueprint of the National Data Strategy will improve decision-making, guide the use and protection of privacy rights and security of data, foster transparency, and assist in bridging the information gap. Now, I would like to briefly mention some of our digital transformation initiatives, which may be relevant to our discussion on big data and data analytics. E-identity and interoperability. One of the major projects that was initiated during fiscal 2023 was the National eID and Interoperability Solution. This will establish a platform for collaboration among and between government agencies and is a key enabler for increasing the efficiency of government. This will, among other things, enable citizens to apply once and gain access to multiple government services for the personalization of benefits to individual citizens, and it will significantly improve the ease of doing business with government. The Developers Hub, the D-Hub as it is affectionately called, was launched on July 24, 2022 as a virtual ecosystem designed to encourage, enable, support, and host the collaborative development of innovative open source and open source standard mobile and web applications of specific interest to the government using government data. The D-Hub is a partnership arrangement between government, the IDB, academia, and the private sector, and it is expected that it will quickly expand the range, the utility and quality of the existing and new e-services provided to citizens and businesses. A major ongoing initiative of the Developers Hub is the first D-Hub Challenge, in which small developer teams bid for the right to develop 5 government e-services. The first phase of that competition has since concluded at the end of September 2023, and saw 3 teams shortlisted to develop a proof of concept for each of the services. The winning teams at the conclusion of the second phase will receive funding for full development and rollout of these services. Thirdly, the establishment of a government data center. The decision has been made to establish a government data center to house critical data, software, and digital infrastructure. This data center will carry a Tier 4 rating and could be scaled up as necessary to meet increased demand. And also, interestingly, having had a conversation with Minister Bacchus in which he informed me that a number of his colleagues across the Caribbean had expressed an interest in exploring the possible housing of data embassies in the government data center, it makes it all the more worthwhile. Their interest is based on the advantages that Trinidad and Tobago enjoys as a secure location for data, one being outside of the main hurricane belt, the low threat of other natural disasters, and our robust and relatively low-cost infrastructure. Once online, the data center will ensure that as we interconnect government systems using the eID and interoperability infrastructure, the resulting services will have the highest possible level of resilience so that service availability remains acceptably high at all times. Other government data will continue to use existing solutions, including the facilities and services offered by the other Tier 3 data centers already established in Trinidad and Tobago. This government data center is being designed primarily to house sensitive government data and applications. It must therefore be emphasized that the establishment of the dedicated data center will be complementary to and not at the expense of Trinidad and Tobago's existing data center ecosystem. In closing, I hope that this brief overview of Trinidad and Tobago's data governance landscape and introduction to some of our digital transformation initiatives relevant to big data and data analytics has been useful. Both are profoundly influencing the digital transformation landscape, and I, for one, am looking forward with great anticipation to Mr. Mohammed's keynote address and the ensuing discussion with our expert panel. Thank you.
Okay, good morning, everyone. I just want to acknowledge the presence of the UN Resident Coordinator, Ms. Joanna Kazana, who has entered the room. And I also want to acknowledge the CEO of the TTIFC, Mr. John Eldridge, who is also here as well with us. And also Mr. Andre Blanchard, the Director of the Central Statistical Office, who is in the audience with us as well. So very distinguished audience today for when you do your networking. All right. The first session this morning is entitled The Transformational Role of, in fact, before we begin, can you please put the QR code up for people who weren't here yesterday? So just for you, if you haven't seen it already, this was up before we started today's session. You can access the brochure for the conference, which includes the program and the biographies of all the speakers and panelists by accessing this QR code, all right? Trying to stick to being a data forum, all right? Okay. So therefore, let me begin with the session one of today's second day of the Big Data Forum, which is entitled The Transformational Role of Big Data Technologies and Analytics, Digitization, Digitalization. My colleague Raymond will do the distinction between the two, and the smarter future. P.S. Belfon is one of the panelists this morning. This session will be moderated by my colleague in the UN Resident Coordinator's Office, Mr. Raymond Prasad. Raymond Prasad is as I mentioned before, the economist in the UN's Resident Coordinator's Office. Prior to that, he was the economic advisor to the Pacific Islands Forum Secretariat. He was also the manager of financial systems development at the Reserve Bank of Fiji, and also a senior economist in the Reserve Bank of Fiji. His education is, he has a master's degree in commerce, economics, and econometrics with honors from the University of Auckland. And this I did not know, Raymond, you've kept this quiet from us. He has a Doctor of Philosophy degree from the Australian National University. Please welcome Dr. Raymond Prasad to the stage. Raymond will be moderating. The other panelists in today's session are Darren Mohammed. Darren Mohammed is the Microsoft Senior Solutions Specialist Manager for Central America and the Caribbean region. Over a 14-year career at Microsoft, Darren has served in many business development roles across managed customer segments, industries, and more recently, cloud-based workloads. Having always had a technical foundation, Darren now leads a technical team of specialists focused on designing cloud solutions and delivering technical proofs for managed customers. Darren has a background in computer engineering and has worked in ICT industry for over 25 years. He doesn't look it. In that time, he has gained 6 years of entrepreneurial experience, having built a successful technology startup prior to joining Microsoft. He uses that wealth of experience to assist in the development of an ecosystem of Microsoft partners across the complex geography, with the goal of that ecosystem contributing to regional GDP. Darren serves on the board of directors of the JMMB Bank and JMMB Express Finance in Trinidad and Tobago, and on the regional JMMB Group IS Committee. Darren, I welcome you to the stage. Finally, we have George Gobin. George is the CEO and founder of GTG. Sorry about that. George is the CEO and founder of GTG Innovision, based in Florida, focused on delivery of technology solutions and associated services to the Caribbean. He provides digital acceleration and consultancy services to enable organizations to accelerate the implementation of the digital transformation strategic initiatives. Previously, George functioned as a consultant for digital transformation in the public sector with Tech Systems, Inc., USA, the group Chief Technology and Information Officer at SM Jaleel Group of Companies, as well as the Microsoft Regional Manager for Bermuda, Cayman Islands, Bahamas, Belize, Turks and Caicos, and Jamaica. George has been working in the information technology field for at least 41 years. Again, George, you don't look it. And has had experience in all aspects of the IT industry and the management of people and companies. George is also a past president of the Information Technology Professional Society of Trinidad and Tobago, and he's currently on the board of the Trinidad and Tobago Network Information Center, as well as director of the board of the Trinidad and Tobago Multi-Stakeholder Advisory Group. George, I welcome you to the stage. Before the panel discussion, we have a keynote speech, which will be delivered by Mr. Darren Mohammed, Director of Microsoft Azure. Mr. Mohammed.
Thank you. Great. Observing all protocols, I do want to recognize PSs for that delivery of the speech. Now, I've worked with PS in all his previous roles in my role as Microsoft. I can safely say that PS has always been someone with the citizens at heart. He's a real true patriot. Always had a pleasure working with him, and I'm glad to see you working on those fantastic projects. I also want to recognize George, too, because George actually hired me at Microsoft. So it is a real honor to be on stage with these two gentlemen. So I really, I have a lot of content, and I really have, I'm going to move really fast because I really want to get through all of this. But, at the end of the day, I'm trying to give you an understanding of what is happening, some of the new technologies in data and AI, and then what you could do, right? How you could leverage these technologies. So you've seen recently, and I'm going to start with artificial intelligence because it is the sort of hot topic recently. And you can see here, it's been well covered. Now, just by a show of hands, how many of you have already started using artificial intelligence? So ChatGPT, any of the image generators, great. So I think we're good to go. So you'd understand that, that this has been a significant leap, right, forward in technology. And it is one of those inflection points where the other inflection points would have been cloud technologies or the internet even. And we're at that stage now. And the pace of it is moving quite fast. When you think of how it's, that pace, you could see that we have already started to ship products with this technology built in. So how many of you might have heard of the Copilot products that Microsoft has been? Great. I'm really happy to see that. But then there are a whole other bunch of these sort of GPT-type, driven-type technologies and products being built as we speak, and it's being widely covered, and the pace is moving quite rapid. I just given a simple example now of whether or not these GPTs can have local context. Here's my prompt. Asking for a carnival reveler on the streets of Port of Spain. If you look behind the reveler, you can see that, of course, that is Port of Spain. And if you look at her face, you can see, very possibly somebody that you might know for a carnival, except this person doesn't exist. If you want to try these out, we've actually started to build this into our browsers. So you can see there a snapshot of Edge. And Edge now comes with a Copilot that is integrating the OpenAI models of GPT-4 as well as the DALL-E image generation models, right? And so you can use that and we do offer three options for that of, having it precise, creative, or balanced, right? Now, when we think of AI and the adoption of AI and your context of the organizations that you are in, we're finding that it is front and center. So 87% of organizations are actually, believe that they can use AI to gain a competitive edge. And by using artificial intelligence and to advance and digitally transform what their mission is, that they can actually use that for a competitive edge going forward. But then, so the question here, and this is where I'm coming to share some knowledge about how, like what sort of use cases can we actually use? So I want to point you to 4 particular use cases that Microsoft is seeing, coming to the front, I would say. Now, it's not that innovation is not happening. In fact, with right next door, you have all the secondary school students taking part in a competition, and they're learning prompt engineering through that competition. So thanks to the UN Big Data Forum for having such big impact in students. And you're going to find that innovation is going to come out of those types of minds where you equip them and arm them with the technology, and then they can create, right, going forward. But we're seeing that in the organizations that we serve and our customers and governments across the globe, these are the 4 cases that we're seeing sort of coming forward. So the first one is content generation. So when you think of generative AI, and that is really when we've had artificial intelligence for a really long time. So what you're seeing now, and when you're seeing all this press about artificial intelligence, they really mean generative AI, right? The ability to actually generate new content. So what we're seeing is that there is a lot of training of existing data sets. And when you think within your organizations, think of where do I have vast volumes of documented human knowledge? Then you take that documented human knowledge and, of course, use it to train a GPT and then create a user interface to generate new content based on prompts, right? So that is one particular case. The second one is summarization. So I'll give you a simple example. CarMax in the United States, big used car company, they all have customer reviews. And so when you go to buy a used car, of course, you'll check the customer reviews. So, long time they've been using people to manually create these summaries of all the customer reviews and the sentiment about the particular car. Now they've switched to using artificial intelligence to summarize all of the previous reviews, again, documented human intelligence, and then, put out in every single car that you browse a summary. The next one is for developers. Right now in code generation, there is now the ability to do, some developers say it's actually doing 97% of the work, meaning that you can just quickly prompt what you want, it will generate the code. And you can see that, again, there are huge leaps forward in terms of code writing using this technology. And here we've incorporated it into GitHub Copilot. And then the last one is where you're recreating search, but search with context. So if you look at how search results in your browser would come up today, of course, they would give relevant information and links. But now that artificial intelligence can understand the context of the search, it could kind of predict what you were going to, what you're looking for, and also give back more intelligent results. And this could happen in organizations and in governments where you can take, again, all of that data, train your models, and then deliver a more relevant contextual search. So here are some examples. Looking at the time, I'm going to move quite quick for you to understand that this is being incorporated across the board. So when you look at the applications now without artificial intelligence, and now here we're getting into the transformation that we're seeing on applications, you're seeing a shift. Now the applications are moving to natural language interaction. So again, remember your GPT experience where it is coming back with in a very conversational type. That's what we're talking about there, natural language interaction. Again, to train these models, you're going to have clean data. And I'm going to get into clean data after. And that's why data and AI are actually married. And they come together because you cannot train your models without having good data. And so here you're using data now to create a personalized experience. And we've seen this already in CRM platforms that use artificial intelligence, where you can see where customer information, once presented back to them, with their whole history, it becomes more personalized for the customer. And then quickly ship new features as you go. And when you're using codecs and code writing, you could actually move quicker in shipping new features for your applications. I don't know, it's not advancing, but if you could advance it for me, please. So these are sort of the blockers that we're seeing to adoption of the technology. And what I want to point to quite quickly is the data component. So you see there in context, generative AI doesn't know about your data. And so when we look at some of the innovations that I'm going to show you today, what we've done is that for you to actually incorporate your data, you have to have guarantees of safety and security to understand that your data is going to sit within a very containerized, protected environment. And that's why we're going to see now development of custom GPTs that are in containerized environments with your data that trained it. And so being a big data forum, I want you to start thinking of that data that exists within your organizations and you know, what state it's in, right? And again, it could be a blocker to deploying artificial intelligence because, you know, if that data is not in a good state, then of course you can't use some of these technologies in the way that they were designed. Now, creating these tailor-made experiences, these custom experiences, I want you to think about, you know, what tools you have available, and then how you're going to integrate your data for and prepare and clean that data for AI. So we have actually launched this week, and that's why this conference is really timed quite well. We have launched this week something called AI Studio, right? So AI Studio allows you to build your own GPT, your own Copilot. And again, it's going to be built within a containerized environment where you can load your data and have the guarantee from us that that data is not going to be used to train any public model, only the model that you are creating and the Copilot that you are creating. So this public preview, and if you want to take down the link or take a snapshot, you can see here, you can actually sign up for that public preview, and you can get access to the AI Studio. This is what it looks like. And here you could see that not only are we using the OpenAI GPT models, but we've incorporated the models from Meta. So you can see that Llama is there. And also we've incorporated the open source models from Hugging Face and so on. So again, you can build your own solutions, right, based on artificial intelligence. Now, AI Studio unifies the whole platform, but what I want to point you to is that we've incorporated safe and responsible AI. So we've created a framework, and I'll show you what that framework is for deploying AI safely. And some, you know, just some foundation principles that we need to follow, like fairness, inclusivity, cybersecurity, privacy. All those must be built inherently into it, and I'll show you how we do that. So this is what the pre-built capabilities that come with AI Studio. So it's not just GPTs, which is, you know, what we call a large language model, but we also have vision there, so you can recognize what's in images. It can also recognize video feeds. We also have language and translation. We have all the major languages of the globe. And again, these are all coming to you as pre-built capabilities. And multimodality, which is even a new recognition where you can do not just text, but you can do image and use images, videos as prompts. And that multimodality is already built into the AI Studio. And here then you can use it for AI orchestration, building your own experiments, your own proof of concepts, and you know, use it then with these models being tuned with your data. So this is, these are some of the machine learning models that we support right now, and you can see it's not just the OpenAI services, but also the ones from Meta, Hugging Face, and also NVIDIA. This requires a massive compute, by the way, and that's why when you're thinking of, well, why can't we do this locally? It's because of that compute, and you will need the sort of infrastructure of a Microsoft to do this, and that's why these, you know, intelligent apps, we're encouraging you, you know, of course, you know, we have to use them to empower people to actually build their own, and that's why it's a big responsibility for us, because again, that type of supercompute is not going to be readily available. And if we are to democratize this technology so there's no differentiation in the students next door in this country versus the students in another country, then of course it must be available as a cloud service from a provider like us, right? And that is why we are looking at it. So these are some use cases that I want to use to kind of prompt you to think, well, how do I do that? Now, I want to talk about data because I don't want to just talk about that. Well, sorry, let me move to the AI principles. So these principles must be built in from the ground up, and they must be built in. Now, when you think of, can I build them into the actual model, the answer to that is no. You know, they will try to build them into the model, but the way the model works is based on prediction, right? And so you can corrupt a model by prompting it with obviously very evil things. And so therefore, when you're building AI applications, you have to start layering over the model with protections, and I'll show you what that looks like. But then when you think of, okay, I'm going to layer over that to protect everyone, then what principles do I use? And so let's start with fairness. So fairness would mean that we would be able to remove discrimination, sexual exploitation, remove hate speech, all of that that could be very disruptive. We need to have it and make sure that it's always removed. It needs to also be reliable, and that so if we are creating now technologies that you're going to be using, of course, the availability of the technology needs to be there. It needs to be reliable in what it returns, so that well, okay, these are facts, that there is no sort of misconstrued facts or any political opinion built into those facts. Then we also need to ensure that there are safety precautions that are taken within that whatever it puts back out cannot cause any harm to people, right? Because, of course, you imagine now, if you're asking it to make a pipe bomb and it's going to tell you how to make a pipe bomb, of course, that can cause harm to people. With that, also, when you're training this and you're putting in your own queries, you want to make sure that we are respecting the privacy of those queries. So, for instance, if you're searching medical conditions or we're using it in a healthcare scenario, we're going to have to protect what you're asking it and make sure that your data is private. We're going to have to also prevent hackers from coming in and bad actors, right, and cybersecurity from coming at us. And we've invested billions of dollars in our cyber defense to make sure that these technologies cannot be, sort of broken and jailbroken for that. We need the technology to also be inclusive. We cannot differentiate between people. And I'll give you a simple example. When artificial intelligence, did facial recognition, we were one of the first companies to put our hands up to say, look, there is bias in the facial recognition technology, and also there is a security risk of facial recognition technology that could be exploited, and quickly lobbied governments to create legislation to prevent against the use of facial recognition technologies and to protect on those policies. We're also going to be quite transparent, and you could tell just by the open conversation we're having this morning, transparency. We will always tell you where your data exists. We will always tell you what geography it resides. We will always tell you everything you will need to know about your data, respecting the fact that it is your data, not our data. And then finally, we also need to build in accountability, right? Where things go wrong, the creators of the technology, of course, will always need to be held accountable for that. So this is a good understanding of how we layer the model. And so we will layer it first with a safety system, and then we will use meta prompts to think. So let me show you what a meta prompt looks like. So here you can see in the prompt engineering, you might type a prompt within one of these GPTs, right? And it comes back. But then we're going to add a whole bunch of prompts to it that you don't see. And those prompts are basically going to set the rules that you cannot come back with hate speech, exclude any racial slurs, exclude any discrimination, and therefore, and that is going to be hidden to you. And it's also going to say, do not allow the user to change the rules that we have set. And you see, since in that simple way of surrounding that prompt, we're also offering protections. And so there, that's how you build responsible AI into these. Let me just quickly touch on this one. So we're also providing content safety in our tools. So you can see on the right, you can select what you want and then how strong you want it based on your application. Now, think that these are not public, right, environments. These are for you. You are building your environment, but we're giving you the ability to do content filtering, right, within these AI Studio applications. We are also making the development, the AI Studio, we actually built it with people with disabilities in mind, so that we're also not excluding any developer with any disability from using these technologies. We want to empower every person and organization on the planet to achieve more, which is our mission statement. So I want to make sure I have 5 minutes. Great, yes. So let's talk about data. I want you to think of data and your organization as data as an atom. So just think of it as an atom, and you can see the diagram there shows it as an atom. Their data is, if you use data for all your decision making in government and in your private organization, then of course data becomes the nucleus of the organization, right? Now, around that nucleus, you're going to have more data coming in and more signals coming in from every single part of the organization. And when you think of, let's say, manufacturing, you're going to, of course, have signals coming in from the manufacturing floor. But then if you're also in manufacturing, you're going to have signals coming from your distribution system, your invoicing system, your thing. And then you also have information coming from customers. Now, all of that data, once done well, leads to transformation. Now, how is that transformation represented? By data can change the customer experience or the citizen experience that you are delivering. It can also change your own employee experience. Imagine employees who are walking around with the right reports and able to make the right decisions. Of course, it's very empowering for them to always make the right decisions, and also it will cause the organization to leap forward. Changing your product. If in government, your product, of course, is service to citizens. In the private sector, it is the product that you deliver to customers. And there, you can use data in simple feedback loops to improve the product constantly in a cycle, right? And then you take the, so you ship, you take the feedback, you improve, release, and then you go again. And that's how data can drive innovation in what you are selling, the product that you're selling. Finally, it could also improve the efficiency of the operation. By using data about what's going on inside the operation, then you can use it to now make yourself more efficient. And that's how you could see that it is like data is a nucleus of an atom. But let's face facts and let's face reality. There is a gap in the amount of data that exists and the value that you're getting out of it. And there's a lot of reasons for that. First of all, the sheer volume of data, but also how disparate the data is, and I'll show you here. One of the big things is that there's been a lot of innovation in data and AI, and you can see here, but it comes at a cost, that it confuses everyone, because now you need all this different, look at how many providers that are on this slide, and you could see here, and we're there, of course, but the amount of products that you can use just to get the job done of getting proper, clean data within your organization, it could be very confusing. So I'll give you another example here. And when you think of your organization and how data exists in your organization, it's in multiple teams, multiple departments, and they're not necessarily interoperable, right? They're not necessarily talking to each other. So guess what they do? They go to their IT, right? Their technology person or their technology rep or thing. And then when you're looking for the right report or the right business intelligence reporting, guess what you do? You start creating copies of the data, right? You start extracting, and then you say, oh, well, for this data warehouse, I'm going to pull out this data, and for that department, I'm going to pull out that. But then all these copies now create a governance problem, right? Because now you have multiple copies. How are you going to keep track? There's no one version of the truth. And then where's the governance coming to say that the data is actually accurate when you have all these multiple versions of the truth? So when you think of what we're going to be, how we are going to approach this problem, is that the first thing is that we want to build software as a service. So we want to make analytics and from the ground up, so the collection and ingestion of data to the visualizations and the reporting must be all in one system, and it must be delivered as a service. Because why must you stress over all these providers, right, when you are just looking for the actual value of the data and the return on the data? So by doing it in a software as a service, end to end, we're able to serve all. The second one is we are looking at a lake-first foundation. How many of you know what a data lake is? Okay, great. So I'm going to quickly tell you. Data lake is storing data in its raw form. Right now you're thinking, okay, that you clean, you curate your data, but what if you take all the data as it exists in its raw form and you dump it into one place? Now, in that one place, you can have different quality levels. You can have a bronze, you could have a silver, and you could have a gold level. And as you clean, and as you curate, and as you think, then, of course, the data, the gold, of course, will give you the most reliability, and the bronze would be things. But however, all the data in its raw form, and that could be images, web, Excel, whatever, sits within the data lake, one location that allows you to not have multiple versions of the truth. It all sits in one particular location, and then is massaged after that. And then finally, if we apply the governance and security to that one location, then you get the right solution for that. So I'm going to close because I'm out of time. But we have just released this product. It's called Fabric. So Fabric is that one software as a service solution. And you could see that we've taken a whole bunch of technologies that we had built, cloud technologies, and we've unified them, connected them, pre-connected them, so that you can now use it and get it as one particular software as a service and have analytics as one software as a service. It serves every single data stakeholder. So from the engineers, they get the data factory and data warehouse. They get to do all the ingest, connection to all the data sources, bring everything into the lake. For the scientists, they get to apply the machine learning models on what sits within the data lake. The data analyst now gets the product of what the data scientists have done as transformed data and gets to create the analytics. And the general citizen, the general person within the organization is going to have access to all of the reports that were already on the transformed, curated data by using simple things like Power BI to help visualize it, or even the Office Suite to circulate it in a very easy, bite-sized way. With that, folks, thank you for listening to me. I try to go as fast as possible. I hope you got some value out of it. And now I'm honored to be on the panel here with everyone here. Thank you.
Thank you, Darren. That was quite extensive. And PS, thank you for your opening statement as well. That was quite enlightening as well to see what the government is doing in relation to the digitization strategy. So as Mark mentioned, I also tried to find out what is the difference between digitization and digitalization. So digitization is using or converting data into certain points, or data conversion simply. And digitalization is the infrastructure around data which transforms them into some usable technology. So basically that's what I got. I think we have very limited time available. So what I'll do is I'll start off with a first round of questions to the panel, then I'll open the floor for some audience question so that we make it a bit more interactive. And then we'll do another round of questions and maybe 2 more questions after that. So first of all, maybe I'll start off with the Permanent Secretary in terms of how Trinidad is embracing the whole digitalization agenda going forward. You mentioned something in your speech related to it's not a finite resource and it's increasing in volume and scope, but then how Trinidad is capitalizing on this going forward.
Okay, so in terms of the Ministry of Digital Transformation and by extension the government, in alignment with government policy for digital transformation, of course the mandate of the Ministry of Digital Transformation, a new way to address the end-to-end consumption and delivery of goods and services by customers using appropriate digital technology. What we would have looked at, and in partnership with agencies such as the UN, the IDB, CAF, critical projects across 3 spheres of influence: digital society, economy, and government. And of course, in terms of driving and embracing all of these projects, requires significant focus, right? So you would have heard me speak about the data center. You would have heard me speak about all of the initiatives that we intend to roll out. But most importantly, how we drive innovation. We have one particular program right now, which is known as the D-Hub, the Developers Hub, where we are reskilling and upskilling developers and bringing them into a community to help solve issues across the public sector. Now, what we would have looked at and what we anticipate coming out of such an initiative is that these solutions can then be packaged for export either regionally or internationally. We do have a talented community of developers available. Of course, and in terms of driving innovation with data and trying to make services more convenient, you would have heard me reference the EID and interoperability, because we need the data across the public service and public sector to be accessible so that persons can conveniently access or register once and access multiple services online via any device at any point in time.
Thank you, PS. Maybe I'll go on to George. We haven't heard from him, but let's, George, focus on the job market and the skills. I mean, we have heard a lot from the Permanent Secretary and from Darren in terms of the technology, how it's used. But is the Trinidadian market aligning the skills in technology with the requirements of the employers in this space?
Thank you. That's an interesting question. Obviously, when you are in a country like ours that has obviously some challenges, I've heard many speakers yesterday talk about where Trinidad is placed in terms of education, and we are one of the highest in the regions. So I think for me personally, listening to the three CEOs, the three companies that talked about how they are utilizing data within their organizations to, one, improve the data quality of their doing, to improve customer insights, to do all the things that they're following up on in terms of feedback to customers, how to improve their system. I was very surprised that we have in Trinidad companies at that level that are actually using the data that they have been tracking over the years. But more importantly to me was that they were actually using a lot of local talent to help derive this kind of information from systems. So when I look at, I have interactions with the, obviously, University of the West Indies, UTT, and I know what their programs are. And I think we're all on the right track in terms of providing the educational part for the students who are coming out today to get into the world of work. But there's one thing that I want to add. You know, I listened to Elon Musk. I'm no fan, but he's a dignitary in the world of computer science and politics. And Elon Musk is saying to us that the world of work as we know it is going to change in 10 years' time. And that's an interesting statement, because we may be preparing students today for jobs that may not exist in 10, 15 years' time. And that's something that I think that we have to spend some time researching. Now, I think Darren said that artificial intelligence, we are generating 97% of the code that we need for projects. So would I need a student to write some code for me, or do I just need to have a good AI system that's going to generate the code for me that's error-free, good chance of error-free? They're going to maintain it. The AI code generators never take holidays, they never take coffee breaks. Those kinds of things is what I think the world has to start thinking about. How is this new world of AI going to help us? And how are we going to start training students for that new world of work that's coming, whether we like it or not?
Thank you. Thank you, George. Before I move on to the last question and then open the floor for audience question, while you're thinking on your question, maybe I'll ask Mr. Mohammed, just to outline, you outlined a lot of products, a lot of services, and the way data and AI is changing the world. But then how come we can, how we can use this to overcome the digital divide in countries like Trinidad and Tobago and the issues of connectivity? So your thoughts on this?
Yeah, absolutely. So and that question is actually connected to the previous one as well, right? On the gap that we're seeing. You know, the statistic is that by 2025, 50% of the workforce will actually need reskilling, right? So we need new skills. So there we have to, again, understand, you know, and it's a sort of a storm coming of reskilling. So we have to create those opportunities for reskilling, right? When I look at, you know, the Trinidad and Tobago in particular, you know, we have 1.1 million social media users. And so the internet penetration rate is one of the highest in the region, right? And so how do we leverage that? How do we take take that further to empower these young people that are coming up, as well as empower people to adapt their skills and to see the potential of taking part in the digital economy, and how do we provide those opportunities is really the golden question. We across the globe have a lot of initiatives. The pandemic created this leap forward in digital transformation. So as everybody was locked in place, the government was moving quite quickly to try to digitize, put out services, and they did. They put out services, but now, of course, the citizens had to make that transformation to start using these digital services, book the appointment for the licensing permit renewals, and so on. And when you think of, okay, we got that, it shows that we can, right, do it in the right way, but we have to have companies like Microsoft put forward. So what we had done at the time was to offer free training courses using LinkedIn Learning, of which 12,000 nationals actually took the course. The number one course was Customer Service Specialist, right? And they actually took that course online. And so, we have to play that part. Understanding AI is coming. We've done the same thing where we've put out a free AI skills course. So if you go into your browser, type in Microsoft AI Skills Initiative, and again, we are producing free courses that people can take, and we're hoping that we can close the gap. Yeah.
Thank you. In addition to this, I just want to mention that the UN Secretary General's team has also released a report on the digital divide that impacts SDG acceleration, and you are always most welcome to go through that on the website. Just after the first round of questions, I'll open the floor for any audience question, if there's any. We have the ushers with the mic. Is there anyone who wants to ask a question? Yes, sir.
Hello, good day. I'm from the Central Statistical Office. I just wanted to know if the information that is being asked to the AIs, is it being used? Like, for example, you mentioned people might ask the AI about certain diseases. Maybe they might ask the AI about new technology, new appliances that comes out. Is that information being used also?
Yeah. So once you're using a public model, right? Of course, you have to understand that when you're using a public model, data could be used, of course, to train, but it would only be with your consent. When you're in the private sector and in the government thing, you have to have containerized environments, right, where that data is going to only reside in your environment, and that's why we're creating these GPTs or whatever model that you want to use. And giving it to you in a way that you can then containerize it and feel safe to put your data in. Now, if you look at the use cases, a large language model could be trained on anything. So when you think of the vast volume of healthcare data that sits outside in all those sites like WebMD, Mayo Clinic, all of these things, of course, having it coming back to you in a conversational way could have good benefits in healthcare, right? But we have to also be mindful of the protections that we need to put in place and have the disclaimers, have the consent and so on already built in when the information is put out. And if you go to any of those sites now and you type in a symptom, it'll always tell you that the information is linked, but however, go see your physician. So, and those things need to be built in there.
If I could just add just one comment to that.
Great question.
One of the things that although we're talking about containerization of data, we still need to have this thing called data classification, because I may have a record of all the information about you, but I don't want somebody to be seeing parts of the information that I consider private and confidential. So when you're building a data system or database of information, you've got to get into this thing called classification of your data. Who has access to it, who has rights to that data, and just not everybody who's a programmer or who has the ability to query using ChatGPT within your company can see all the data. It has to be classified. Thank you.
Yes, you would like to contribute?
Yeah, I think the points raised by George and Darren are pertinent, in terms of the classification, the types of data structures that we utilize from the large language model. So yeah, it's correct, it's on point.
Thank you. Any other question? We'll take one more. to this lady here, and then Abdul on table 20.
Hi, morning. My name is Rosadi. I'm from Agostini Insurance Brokers Limited. I did have a question for the PS more than anybody else. Is there an actual plan to help kind of close that gap? Because in the spaces that I work, I encounter a lot of adults who can't do basic things like find their browser, get a capital letter on the computer and stuff like that, and they make up a large part of our workforce. And I don't think that we want them to kind of get left behind as we move forward. So I didn't know, who do we expect to take on that responsibility of bridging that gap and helping them kind of stay part of the workforce?
So I actually wanted to interject when Darren was speaking, and George as well. That's a really great question. So right now, we do have digital literacy classes ongoing at our access centers, right? We have 15 spread throughout the country. There's another 100 in train. We're doing that in terms of our belief that no one should be left behind, right? So in terms of a digital society, what you want as you introduce technological advancement, products, services, you want to ensure that persons who may not be as savvy with digital technology have a place to go to access devices. They could access connectivity to be able to access government e-services and also receive the training necessary to be able to do those things on their own. As a component to that, another thing that we are looking at is an integrated service center, so that persons who require that assistance can call in via or message. We will meet you there in terms of that omni-channel approach to get that assistance to you. So from the start of access to the e-service to the end product of the e-service itself. In terms of closing the gap in terms of devices, there's the access centers. There's also, government's policy over the last few years would have been to also have devices made available to persons, especially within the realm of education. So we're also driving both devices and connectivity. We also have TT Wi-Fi, where we're also putting Wi-Fi devices and Wi-Fi networks in public spaces so persons have connectivity. So we're doing a lot across a wide variety of spectrums to ensure that persons have connectivity, they have devices, and they receive the training to be able to access all of these new services that we're bringing on board.
Thank you, Piers. Maybe I'll take a question from Abdul, from ECLAC.
Thank you very much, Raymond, for the opportunity. Thank you, Mr. Mohammed, for the very informative presentation. I took special interest in the AI principles that you highlighted, the fairness, inclusiveness, and I'm wondering, in your attempt to be fair and to be inclusive, how do you balance misinformation or disinformation in order for the information or whatever product that someone using AI is getting, for that information to be accurate and reliable? Which accuracy and reliability, I think, is part of the principles that you highlighted. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's a great question. Again, I go back to the development of these systems, right? You have to put in place that reliability and those safety mechanisms to stop disinformation. Because again, there is potential for abuse, and there is potential for abuse of all technologies, and that's why we need to build it from the ground up, right? So whenever we are creating any sort of particular model, we need to wrap it around that fact check, that double. So there are technologies to actually do that, to double check things. There are also governance structures that the data or the results cannot be out unless it is curated, right? Especially when there are sensitive topics like political or hate or discrimination. It must be built into the system, and when you think about that, the principles are already there. They're probably enshrined in most laws, and the systems now need to reflect the outside and need to also put those in.
George would like to contribute.
Yeah, one of the things that we look at is really bias in artificial intelligence systems, and that's a four-letter word that we have to be very careful about its use. Amazon recently announced that their hiring systems 10 years ago were very much skewed against hiring women within Amazon. And it's because they they stopped reading resumes that were submitted to them. They did a software robot that automatically went through these resumes and picked out keywords before they will hire you. And because there was a propensity in the early days of only men becoming computer science engineers, the AI, the bot was skewed towards only hiring men. So women, once you announced that it didn't matter what your name was, you went to a women's college or you had this kind of social interactions, you were automatically disqualified from getting jobs. That bias was fixed by Amazon. They've announced that they fixed it, but it tells you what are the kinds of things that you can run into if bias is not looked at clearly in terms of when we are generating AI. Who is the person who created the code? What are his biases? Whether they're racial, cultural, all those kinds of things have to be taken into account.
Thank you. We'll hold, okay, one more question before we go into the panel discussion.
Hi, good day, everyone. So my name is Andrea Kane from the same ministry with PS. I just want to tell you all about, we have online courses at no cost in digital literacy and above. And right now we have a table outside with a flyer that you could scan the QR code and register. So Minister mentioned all the access centers, and you could go in anytime to an access center for help. But we could also register right now for an online course, right, by the Ministry of Digital Transformation.
Thank you. We'll just go back to the panel and then we'll open the floor again after that. Just going back to a panel discussion, and this is a question for all the panelists, is that what do you classify as the single most critical factor that can sort of affect the success of Trinidad in participating or in the journey towards digitization in the future? So what are the current situation as well as the future that you foresee? And what is the single most important factor? So I'll start off with PS in terms of make or break it.
Sure. So I'd like to give a different response to what is traditionally given for this particular question. It's easy to say collaboration in terms of getting us to where we need to be, right? It's really a byproduct, but what we're really looking for is a unification of our people, Trinbagonian people, to accept and believe in the ideal of a digitally transformed society from where we would have come from and where we need to be. It really comes back to that belief, our together we aspire, together we achieve. When you hear those words as a Trinbagonian, what you're looking at and what you're thinking and what you need to believe in is that we need, yes, we may be many people, we may have voices, but there's one singular vision to get us there. In terms of our collaborative ecosystem, that would then lead to further partnerships. It would then lead to the acceptance of those ideas and the implementation and execution to get us to that transformed society that we are looking for. It is necessary. It's actual survival at this point compared to where we would have come from. We can't go to the future without all of the necessary layers and aspects of a digital society in place, from people to systems, to technology, to the regulation. All that has to be in harmony. Yes, we are diverse, but it really comes down to our belief in terms of what we want Trinidad and Tobago to be as nation builders and as a Trinbagonian, and saying that you're a patriot. That is what it comes down to. You have to believe, you have to put your shoulder to the wheel, private sector, public sector, academia, the partnership ecosystem. It's necessary for us to advance as a people.
Thank you, PS. It was a very inspiring that we aspire together to achieve. I mean, it's an important part of any achievement going forward. Maybe I'll go on to Darren, one single important factor, and then to George.
Yeah, I couldn't have said it better than PS did. When we looked at simple example. When we created the school competition, I was on one of the calls and I heard, when, we were trying to encourage some of the non-prestige schools to take part in the competition so that they could come and learn prompt engineering. And when you think of PS talking about belief, our job, of course, is to create the building blocks and to make sure that the access is there, make sure that we don't differentiate, so that if anybody from Trinidad and Tobago wants to innovate, they have the tools and the ability, and we've democratized it so that they would have these powerful tools that they can do it. However, they need to have the belief. Now, within Trinidad and Tobago's Microsoft division, something happened within the last year. We hired 2 software engineers. And I was a country rep at the time, and I was not aware that we were hiring 2 software engineers, because we don't do the software engineering here, we do it at Redmond. But because the pandemic sort of flattened the globe, the company found talent where it resided. And we hired these 2 people. They came into our office, and I met them for the first time, and yeah, they said they just applied globally, and they were allowed to stay in Trinidad and Tobago, and now they're actually working on shipping product, right, for us. When I look at, we are inside Microsoft, we have this group called West Indians at Microsoft. George started it. When you look at the level of where Caribbean nationals have gotten to within a multinational like Microsoft, and how far they've gotten in leadership positions and the amount of influence that they have, when you have to ask yourself, where did that belief come from? Where did that belief come from that they can be that person, that leader? And if we can do that for the kids that didn't show up today, right, and help them to understand that, hey, this is not a prestige school thing. The UN opened it to every single school. But it really might come down to belief that, I could take part in a competition. I could learn artificial intelligence. I could learn how to prompt it, and there is probably the mandate of everybody in this room and all of us as patriots of our country.
Thank you, Darren. I'm going to take a little bit different approach to this because you asked, what is one thing that we need to move to the next day. For those of you who've heard about the PESTLE analysis model, PSTLE, P stands for politics, E stands for economy, S is for social, T is for technology, L is for legal, and E is for environment. It's called a PESTLE model. And when you're doing a project like digital transformation or digitization of Trinidad and Tobago, one of those columns or 2 of those columns at a time may not be working right for you in terms of giving you the right answers. The example is, obviously, I did a survey among my technical peers, gurus, and instantly they all came back to me and said the reason that the digitization or the digital transformation of most countries in the Caribbean is because of the PESTLE model. The P, the politics of the country, is what causes a project to fail at that. Well, that could be a one-sided view because they're technical people, and I'm sure as you go through, you'll see the legal side from. Trinidad was, for example, was one of within the first 3 companies that did data protection back in 2011, I think it was. And yet today, we don't have a data privacy, data protection law in place. Other countries who started after us have gone. So maybe it was a legal issue, a part of that model that caused us to be late. Maybe things have been changing so fast that it was difficult to keep the legislation alive and well. So I'm going to say that the one thing that I think that we're probably lacking is communication. In addition to strategy and vision, but we, the public, we, the technical people within the community, we never seem to have an idea of the strategy that the government is the details. I mean no disrespect to the PS this morning. Corey and I are good friends, I think, and we'll still be after this. But the strategy plan was launched. I read it on the website. I've been looking at it, the plan on the website. And there's a huge plan, great, and I'm seeing the things like the D-Hub and stuff, which I think are fantastic ideas, and they will really get places. But I, as a citizen, I, as a technical person, I don't see timelines for when things will happen. So that to me, that's a communication issue that if I am trying to find out, I didn't know about SDG and the Open Data Portal until I was here yesterday, but it has been announced apparently long before. And other people know about it. I heard the PS say there are over 300 data sources already available. And we should know things. So I think communication is a key thing that we need to have within this country of Trinidad and Tobago.
Thank you. I think our panel put it together very elegantly in the sense the PS mentioned about aspiring together, Darren Mohammed mentioned about belief, and Mr. George Govin mentioned about the political, economic, social, technology, legal, and as well as environmental implications and the interconnected aspect of that. So with this, I'll open the floor for final round of questions. Is there any? Yes, please. Can you stand up and identify yourself for the information of the panel?
Hi, good day. My name is Kavita, and I'm from the Ministry of Public Administration. The issue of legislation and the legal aspects of AI and data, big data, we kind of touched on it a few times, and I just wanted to find out, for the context of Trinidad and Tobago, what's in the works, what's being done, how they're going to leverage the existing legislation to identify some of the key ethical concerns with AI and big data, namely data protection, data privacy, intellectual property protection, and the third, the use of AI for crime. So things like revenge porn, child porn, that kind of thing.
Okay. Would you like to, yes?
Yeah, so, I can speak to the Data Protection Act, and I did mention in my speech that we are looking at revamping that package of legislation in 2024. For specifics regarding the other areas that you raised, I know it is the objective of the government to comprehensively review legislation surrounding some of those areas. So in terms of those timelines, I would refer you to those relevant ministries to follow up to get that particular answer. But I could only be specific in terms of data protection and privacy.
George, in your intervention, you mentioned something about the legislation. Would you like to contribute?
Yes. Well, I think this is not a problem that's going to affect Trinidad. It's a global issue. And the United States, which is, as you know, purveyors of a lot of this AI and AI research and the releases, all of the major software companies met in Washington with President Biden and his whole team as to what are we going to do about the pace of which we're developing AI systems and to handle all of the issues that you have brought up about quality bias, pornography, all of those kinds of things. And what do we do when AI starts running the world? Because I'm probably the person that's been longest on the planet on this panel, I remember the days of when the IBM PC first came out in 1981, and the whole world was going crazy and saying, oh, well, computers are going to take over the world and we're going to lose jobs and all of these things are going to happen. And we in IT fooled, or we did not give the right story to all our companies. For example, we promised the end of paper. We said, oh, everything is going to be on a computer and no longer on paper. Today, we are utilizing more paper than ever. The government of Trinidad and Tobago is one of the major users of paper in this country that they've been ordering stuff. Now, I looked at, I'm going to go for a couple of minutes more extra because this is something that I believe we need to look at. You're all familiar with the Ministry of Transportation and the renewal of your driver's license and stuff. And you launch a program that says, well, you can now go online and download a PDF copy of the driver's license form, and you fill it in, and then you bring it to the driver's license office. And yet I can go to another screen and inquire on my driver's license and get all the information as to whether it's valid And so it means that the data is there. Why couldn't I, if I put my information in, have the form come up with everything that's pre-filled? If I need to change it, I do it and I print it and I submit it online. Why do I still have to print a sheet of paper and go? So those are the kinds of things that I think we need. So somebody will tell me, well, that's legal, it may have a precedence that we have to follow. But those are the kinds of things that I think we need to fix from this point of view.
Thank you, George. I think we are out of time for the next panel to come on board. Darren, any last words, and then we'll round up here?
No, I mean, you're hearing the screaming next door. Please stop over and have a look at the faces. I thought that was immense impact when I saw the young people next door taking part in the prompt engineering competition held by Telios. Please stop by and have a look. I think it is inspiring. And you could see real impact of forums like these. So encourage you to do that. Thanks so much.
Thank you, and thank you. Can we put applause for the panel? Thank you.